How do we ensure that when you make your contributions today, time is due for you to retire, indeed you get what you have actually invested as a contributor to the various pension schemes out there? There's an institution, a body that's supposed to ensure that your funds are protected and ensure that you get what you're due when you retire. There's been a lot of development in this space in recent times. But what is the role of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority when it comes to ensuring that the players live up to expectation, ensure that the right thing is done? Pension contributions in Ghana today, ensuring that the right things are done as you engage the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. Mr. John Mbro, I hope I got the name right.
John Mbro.
John Mbro. Thank you so much for it. I mean, you recently moved to take over this position, some would say, being within the system actually, as the deputy, one of the directors in that sense, to be corrected. How has it been for you so far in terms of assuming this position as the new chief executive of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority?
Thank you very much. Well, it's been a humbling experience. I have stalwarts who have come through to be, the CEOs of this noble institution. And your job is cut out for you. You have to actually regulate, a very huge industry. The tier one, which is NET, as you know, and then the private pensions managers. You have the tier two schemes and the tier three as well. So it is quite a huge task. But as you said, I've been here, and we have actually worked in a way that systems and the kind of the approach that we have used over the period is actually paying off. And we are only to strengthen our regulatory tools to be able to work with all the stakeholders to ensure fair and safe returns for retirees. And what we do basically to ensure that indeed the funds are safe is that there are directives and guidelines, and we also have a team doing inspections both off-site and on-site. So we keep these managers on their toes. And so they report to us monthly, quarterly and annually, and then we also have from time to time on-site inspection based on the triggers we pick. And so it's been very, it's been properly organized, and so far so very good.
I mean, for somebody who has been in the authority for a while, some would say that there wouldn't be a grace period for you, and there'll be much be desired from you as well in getting down to get the job moving or get the ground hit.
That's right. That's right. Yes, of course. I've been in here, and there's no honeymoon for you. Thankfully, I've been the director for standards and compliance, which is basically the regulation.
So that is the heart of the whole
that's right. So
authority and then regulating the sector.
That's right. So you only add some other things to it. So it's run very well. That has actually also helped me to hit the ground running, to review or to indeed look at what we have been doing and where we need to add. We are adding. So it's been very smooth so far.
If you look at the sector today from the perspective of the regulator, I mean, how would you describe it today? You have assets that are built up to, is it 71 billion Ghana cedis? And in March this year, how would you describe the industry now? Good, still a lot to be done, or indeed the prospects are interesting and bright?
Yeah, we have a very bright prospects. I mean, within the last 13 years, grown from a period, 2016 was about 15 billion. Now we're talking about an industry with 71.3 billion. That is significant. It's a huge jump. And it calls for upscaling of regulatory responses. And that is exactly what we are doing. So far, so very good. Because for the formal sector, as I call public sector or the formal sector, we are doing quite well. The informal sector, the penetration there, and of course you should understand that is voluntary. People would have to look at their income levels, look at the need for retirement income, and therefore do the pensions contribution. So the penetration there has not been that encouraging. But so far we are hitting about 8% of the total 85% of those in that category. And so far so very good. But we need to actually engage in certain other development partners and stakeholders to be able to move in that direction on a different sort of strategy to ensure that the groups that are within there, we try to do a lot of sensitization education. The retirement income is crucial because all over in Africa and even elsewhere, those in that category, they tend to suffer much, or most, when it comes to retirement, benefits. I mean, it's garbage in, garbage out in our part of the world, and therefore, if you don't actually do anything, then you retire and you don't have anything also coming through for you if you have not made your personal arrangements and all. So what we have seen is to rather engage, though it's voluntary. There are certain cushions in there, there are carrots, or quite some of them, because when you do the tier 3, for example, for the informal sector, you can even do tier 1, which is a SNIT scheme, which gives you the same conditions as you would have had if you were working for someone. But if you look at the other one, the tier 3, that gives you the lump sum, then you are likely to have, even as you're working prior to your retirement, you have a savings portion and the pensions portion. So it gives you that opportunity to actually draw down, to maybe improve on your businesses, and then have your pension one constantly in there. To retire, you draw that. So the law itself has made it a bit flexible. We are also exploring ways by which we can actually improve upon the carrots that must come with that. But so far, it's about the need to make a contribution and the need to also work towards your retirement. That's so crucial. Many of our people are actually struggling when I mean, from that category, the informal sector or self-employed persons. Some of them perhaps do not know that there's there's a law that allows them, or there's a scheme that allows them to make contributions towards their retirement, and we still would have to up our game when it comes to sensitization.
Let's come to the place that you have played over the years, compliance. Let's first look at the private sector as well. It's been a quite interesting space in ensuring that when the person who employs me says that at the end of every month I'm taking XYZ to your various schemes, they are doing that.
Yes, many of them are doing that. And of course, as you know, some of them want to feign that they don't understand that they have to do tier 2, they do tier 1, and there's a reason. SNET has done very well, dotted reasonably with, throughout the country, have compliance, and therefore they have a mandate also for tier 1. So many people do the tier 1. Tier 2, yes, will have to come behind the schemes that are going around, and the reports that we get from individuals who are working for some entities that are not paying, and our own compliance soups that we do. And these are the tools or the strategies that we use to actually catch up with those who are perhaps doing tier 1 and not doing tier 2. These are mandatory schemes, as you know. Tier 1 is mandatory, tier 2. Once you employ somebody, you are supposed to pay tier 1 and tier 2. So we are doing a lot in terms of compliance to ensure that people pay. But if you don't pay, and then somebody reports you, or we find out, there is this surcharge that we apply. The law enjoins you to pay 3% surcharge. And we make sure that those things are done. And failure of which, then we hold it before a judge. Prosecutions, and I think you are aware.
Are you doing that? Has it gotten to that stage where you have to pull employer
Oh, yes,
employer
several of them. We've done several prosecutions. We've sent about 40 or more than 40 cases, and some of them have actually complied by paying. We've retrieved about 20 million from indeed prosecutions. And so we're doing well in that. But the only thing is that you need to get them, hold them before a judge, or send them a final demand notice before they pay, as SNET does. And that is, I think, is also helping us.
In percentage-wise, how would you rate the compliance when it comes to the private sector?
Well, the private sector is so minimal. It's very minimal. I mean, if you want to talk about compliance, then we are looking at tier 1, tier 2.
Yeah, both.
These are mandatory ones. Tier 1, yes, people are also in court for not paying tier 1. They pay, they get to a point, they stop, and some of them are not paying, they are how they pay. So that, you say that, yes, they are in the loop. And when somebody pays tier 1, is not paying tier 2, do you say he's compliant or he's partly compliant? Those are the issues, and some that are not also paying at all. With the kind of compliance we have, the two layers, the SNET layer and then the private sector layer, we think that we are making a lot of headways. I mean, but we need to actually bridge the gap between those compliant on tier 1 and tier 2, and that is what we seek to do, to have systems and strategies to be able to indeed get data, especially with register of companies, which we are working closely on, to be able to get all entities and then make sure that whether it's automatic enrollment or indeed we find, we come after you with the details that we find. So we are trying to have a real life, real-time data with indeed register of companies to be able to actually go after all these entities. I mean, sometimes you go there, they are paying, that's fine. But if they are not paying, that's where they have to tell you why they are not paying, and then you can calculate the contributions in default and the surcharge.
Are you just really getting tough on the private sector? Because there have been instances reported in the past about government also not meeting its, in terms of timely payment of these schemes, tier 1 and tier 2. Can you update me when it comes to the issue about government as well paying what is due when it comes to the SNIT contributions of the public sector workers for both tier 1 and tier 2?
Okay, so the fact is that there's always a lag when it comes to the government. And for reasons, operational reasons between the Ministry of Finance and Control Accountant and their schemes, there is always a lag, and sometimes, unfortunately, it has to delay for a while.
Where delay is 2 months or 3 months or even a
beyond
year?
That. I've not heard a year.
Okay.
I've not heard about a year, but I've heard about 7 months and all.
But that's quite long.
Yeah, quite long. But the government is kind of also a secured sort of data kind of thing. And the moment you actually, it shouldn't get to that, where people have to wait for, say, 3 months and 7 months before the contributions are paid on their behalf. But we try to also work on surcharges, as we say. And we try to also engage so the schemes will get the money at the right time. Don't forget that we are talking about their lump sums. And lump sums is garbage in, garbage out. This is a defined contribution scheme. And therefore, if the monies do not come, and if you don't collect the surcharges with it, then the contributor, the risk is on the contributor. It doesn't get home with what it's supposed to get. And we're working towards that.
I mean, even before I look at even the timeliness, there were even reports in the past about the government indebtedness as well and all those things. As we speak right now, have all those debts being cleared or is still being worked on? I
really think that it is always worked on. That's what I've seen over the years. There's always a lag that you have to do reconciliation here and there, and then they pay up. The only thing is that there should be a reasonable time that we all have to agree for pension managers that this is a reasonable time as a lag within which we can operate effectively. And so that is all we are seeking to do, so we can have some kind of a payment schedule or a planned schedule so that the schemes can also have a kind of a steady plan to be able to operate in the space. And that will help, and we are pushing for that. Thankfully, the Ministry of Finance and all the the actors are all in for this, and we hope to be able to come up with something that would sustain the industry inclusively and mutually beneficial.
Recently, we heard about some bonds being issued and all the rest. So, as we speak right now, has those debts due been paid or part has been paid in terms of the SNIT contribution for the public sector workers? Or what is the structure and the payment of all these things as we speak right now? Okay,
so far, the government has actually, over the last month, cleared the principal indebtedness to SNIT. Okay, the SNIT, the government indebtedness that was at stake, about 2.6 billion has been paid, structured in certain bonds and all, similar to the bonds that were given, but these ones have quite long, a bit longer in terms of the tenure. And then they have also given some kind of treasury instruments, so that they can actually unleash liquidity into the SNIT scheme. These are welcoming. I mean, if you can capitalize this, if you can actually put this in your books as your assets under management, these are structured instruments that you can really recognize them. And yes, they are paid. Our hope is that we can have, as I said earlier, but not only for the SNIT scheme, but also for the those tier 2 pensions as well, that we can have a structured way of actually handling this. I mean, they go a long way to help.
I mean, talk about the structured way and help me with some education here. I know that, for instance, when it comes to these finance houses and all the rest, they enter into an arrangement with the controller where even before the person's salary is paid to him or her,
that's right,
they do deductions as well. would it be fair to push, and I don't know what the regulations will say, in terms of ensuring that when the government pays the money or before the controller can do the deductions and then ensure that the timeliness, because when someone is due for pension, they don't want to hear that government has a structured payment that will stretch over a year. They want to pay, get their lump sum and get what is due them.
Okay, so for the public sector schemes where these relate, I mean, they are managing it in a way. I mean, the trend we have seen, the schemes are. You have to actually, give it to them. They've done so well, especially the public sector schemes. They have a system in place to respond to when people have gone home and all that. Perhaps not what everybody expects as a perfect system. But so far, so very good. But the government paymaster is a controller accountant general. And they would have to, just as an individual or a private entity, would have paid your monthly salary and then deducted the pensions and paid. The controller accountant general does that. But of course, you know that they work in an environment that they are able to actually say, oh, okay, let's do this one first and that one second. So that's where the lag comes. And whatever it is, there's a way that we are able to work with the Ministry of Finance, Controller Accountant General, to be able to isolate the amounts in default and then have a plan. And the moment there's a default, there's also a surcharge, which issue we are also trying to deal with, to be able to make sure that the effort that are being put in by the trustees, the public sector, especially in this category, I mean, they inure to the benefit
you
of the
talked about
contributors.
the surcharge for the private sector.
Yeah.
Does the same applies to government? When
Yeah,
government
we calculate
delays,
it. Yeah, we calculate it. We
And
calculate it. I
and
mean, the
it's
schemes will calculate it. Yeah, we attempt to enforce it. Yeah, we try to enforce it. Don't forget that. Yes, government has paid so much in terms of surcharges.
and the surcharge
when
was
especially
enforced.
the TPFA was transferred, they pay that. And the recent ones, we are forcing that. It's by law, so we need to work on that. And we're working with the schemes in that respect. Everything that has come in, they come in, they write the surcharges as well. And then some monies are paid. So we need to always have a reconciliation to know what is paid and
For
what
the
is not
SNIT
paid.
1, yes, things have been. What about the various schemes as well? Because we've had the various organized labor members who've been out and been complaining and all the rest. I mean, as a regulator, how are you also ensuring that when it comes to government, these schemes, the due payments are also being made?
Yes, the unions, they are they are part of the trustees.
Yeah.
And you hear their voices.
Yeah.
And don't underestimate the unions of this country. They have a lot of education. They do a lot of learning. You could say maybe a teacher or a doctor, nurse, and all that. You just have to be very careful how you engage them when it comes to those on their schemes. So they know the implications of late payments and all. It's not only the SNIT scheme.
Yeah.
SNIT scheme is kind of a defined benefit, as you know. So the risk is not on the individual contributor. It's something that is assured, guaranteed, and then they pay you. But the tier 2, they know the risk is on the contributor, and those guys managing it, they mount a lot of pressure. They write letters, surcharges. They have constant training and all, and they know the time value of money considerations in this direction. So they really push, and we are also with them. We think that there's a need for all of us to make sure that pensions, which becomes a cushion for people in certain ages. We make sure that they are intact, because old age is where you are most vulnerable. And if you have worked and you expect something based on maybe your salaries and all that, and I mean, you have done all this for several years, and something is not coming in as you expect, then that becomes an issue. So we dare not fail the people.
Simbra, when I come back, I'll just find out from you, as a regulator, what gives you sleepless nights?
Okay.
Tying into your vision for the sector as well, and also moving from just the contributions being done, how do you also ensure that the right investments are done as well? This is PM Express Business Edition. As we look at pension contributions in Ghana today, what is the role of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority in ensuring that the right things are done? We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition, as we look at protecting contributors' funds in Ghana when it comes to pensions. What is the regulator doing to ensure that the right things are done, to ensure that when you are due for retirement, you're able to get your lump sum and the other schemes giving you that benefit to take home? Mr. John Quenim Embro, I hope I got the name right.
That's right.
In terms of how you're getting these thoughts. And I was just trying to find out from you, I mean, from the perspective of a regulator, when you look at this industry, what are some of the challenging spots that gives you sleepless nights?
Right. Okay, first one I'll talk about, I mean, we also advise government on pensions.
Yeah.
And therefore, you want to have...
so now you're working hand in hand more with the Minister of Pensions.
Yeah, of course. And then the pension companies and all stakeholders. You want to make sure that pension is actually undertaken by the general populace. I mean, majority of the people, especially the informal sector. That is worrisome because as you see, many people not doing pensions. You're also worried about their retirement incomes. Yeah, they might have to tell you why they are not doing whatever arrangement they have in place. But old age poverty is a crucial problem of this country and other developing countries as well. And there's a need for us to, maybe in our homes, churches and all, let's ask people whether you do pensions. Our church members, our friends, our unions, let's ask them whether they do pensions, especially those not in the informal sector. It's so worrisome and scary. The rate at which people are not doing it, or those who are doing it. Perhaps because
but some will see that falls in line with your space to ensure that it is done.
Okay,
that's where the regulator comes in.
Yeah, the regulator, I mean, because it's voluntary, what the regulator can do is to have the enabling directives and policies and all that, and the schemes. They are available.
And are you doing that? Yeah,
we're trying our best. We're trying to do sensitization here and there, trying to encourage groups, and that has been a strategy. You recently heard about certain groups that we have actually managed to get them have pensions under the Tier 3. For the individuals who are doing their own thing and artisans and all, they are supposed to really understand the usefulness of having pensions, doing contributions, so that in future, or when they are, they get to their retirement ages, they are able to access some funds. Our worry is that the provisions have been made by law. Yes, though voluntary, they can start it in a way that at least they have something, during their retirement ages, and that is what concerns me. One of the greatest things that you would love to have is that people understand this wonderful concept. Yeah, today you can throw some few things somewhere for your future, especially if you are not in the formal sector. At least whatever you do, that can also come as a cushion. My worry is the old age poverty in our country, and it's our prayer that we are able to get people to understand the need to do it in a small way that will turn bigger.
Someone looks at Joa Manson, who she taught in a government institution for like 30, 35 years. She was contributing to SNID. And they look at her struggling today to take her contributions, even to get medical care and all the rest. They look at that person and they are not convinced about setting something aside for pension because they are worried about the current state for Joa Manson, who's taught in a government institution or a school for 30 years. She's gone on retirement and there's nothing to take home or to smile about.
Oh, there is. There's often something to take home. I mean,
but I'm just saying that most of them, it is not good. A lot of people who have gone through their way, it's their kids, it's their family that are supporting these old women.
Yes, I can understand that because of perhaps the quantum, the salaries they were drawing then. Don't forget that even the single spine, I mean, the period it came in 2010 when the new pension laws also came in. And the fact that, the salary levels is a function of what you take home. Pension, I mean, the pension contribution is based on your basic salary. So generally, if salary levels are really low, then or are relatively compared to individual circumstances, then if you take high, a percentage of that has been set aside for your pensions, and therefore that is also going to affect your pension. But broadly, if the person had done pension, at least he has something small to draw, regardless of the quantum. That's what we are saying here. That let's make the effort out of whatever you are actually paid, based on whatever established salary you have. Let's do some pensions. Or the informal sector, as I mentioned, whatever you do, just establish something and put something down. That small thing, I mean, without that, just imagine what that Joa Manson's fate would have been. if he had nothing at all, given what he even gets and is complaining. So I believe that in addition to that, but that should be fundamental as the first layer, let's make sure that we work towards something, that whatever our efforts would also come to kind of complement it. So my view is that we just have to try and do that. And even under the new law, there's also the position we have where you can actually maybe do your own pension calculation based on your current circumstances, look at that period where you are perhaps most vulnerable, your financial circumstances, and then top up. So you can do tier 1, tier 2, and do tier 3. The law has allowed that, so that you can actually do something. As for the lifestyles, whatever money you have, it takes Adjoa Mansa or Kofi Menu to decide on perhaps whether or not the money they have is enough based on how they spend it. But my view is that let's do it. Let's try and do something, and then even be very sensitive about what you are likely to get in future. I mean, the systems, the pension schemes that you have, or the pension companies, the corporate trustees, they all have systems to tell you if you should actually open up to them. That, oh yes, I'm Kofi Menu or Kofi whatever, you are, I do this kind of business. And then I want to see if indeed by X number of years when I retire, I want to take this money, I want to be able to get this money to do A, B, C. They will help you out. So they will just help you structure how much you can put in every month. For now, if you are putting in 200 cedis or 100 cedis, you might think that, oh, it's too small. When does it become that big? But then the question is that those small things compounded for a several number of years is so huge. And that's what when we meet the groups, that's what we tell them. The compounding effect, the time value of money, that's right. That's right.
I know you are tough on the contributions being done or the payments being done. What does your regulation also say about the right investment? Let's start first with SNIT as well. What is the authority doing to ensure that when it comes to the tier 1 and SNIT, when contributions are made to SNIT, the right investments are done? And I'll come back to the issue about the recent ILA report as well. But let's start first with, does your regulation stop at ensuring that if I have a company, Wiafe and Co., you're on my neck to make sure that I pay the payments?
The company is doing well.
Yeah, but what about you also moving on to SNIT and to the various schemes to ensure that the right investments are done? And I look at one of your visions in talking about getting the right payment and the benefits and all those things. What are you doing about ensuring that, first with SNIT, when they collect the money, the right investments are done?
Okay, thank you very much. SNIT has actually been around over 52 years, as you are aware. And they've always, I want members, I mean, our viewers to know, our listeners as well, to know that, look, SNIT has a lot of technical, professionals within. There's no doubt about that. But of course, when it comes to decision making, you might think that maybe it's coming from the very top. They are doing their very best. They have an investment. Yes, all professionals in the actuaries, investment division and analysts and all that are there. Yes, it is a defined benefit scheme, and they've actually done several investments. Some of them, of course, are not giving the necessary benefits, returns, as you would all have wanted. But reality is that if investment risk you cannot actually hedge against, you can only try and do your very best. We would need to. We have given them a policy. We have worked with SNIT to come up with a broad policy by law. And if being proud to that, what they have done, if you have checked their statement, you see all the asset classes. We're trying to help to align these ones and then look at the kind of exposures to the ones that are not performing and all that. To be able to unleash some kind of, freshness of, life into the financial sustainability of the scheme. And apart from the investment policy, we are also looking at their expenditure, admin expenses. That is an area that the board is also seriously looking at, for us to also just engage and streamline and make sure that in addition to looking at their investments, they are also being a bit careful and very prudential when it comes to their investment and then also the admin expenses. You need to be prudent, otherwise, no matter how much you come in, as I mentioned about somebody's retirement amount, you are not likely to really get the benefit of it. And it's a scheme that we all have to make sure it succeeds. We all have to make sure it succeeds. And that way, the authority is actually doing everything possible to work with the scheme. Investment policy, crucial. Expenditure lines, we have to look at that. And they themselves to also reassess the assets that they have really invested in, the assets in their books. And then a lot has been done over the last few years.
How has this engagement been with respect to the reviewing the investment policies and all the rest? You talked about the kind of capital, human capital that SNIT has. I also know that the authority here has a lot of strong human capital,
of course,
to review the thing. What has been the level of engagement in terms of reviewing some of these investment policies to ensure that maybe, for instance, can we have a document on the investment line for the next 5 to 10 years? I had concerns about SNIT, about question marks about the investment when I was a kid, and I'm still hearing that. What has been the level of engagement, the level of scrutiny to ensure that, listen, going forward for the next 5 or 10 years, this challenge can be addressed? I know it takes time to disinvest and all the rest, but the concerns about the investment of SNIT stretches back to 20 years ago, 30 years ago.
Yeah.
And so what is the authority doing now to ensure that we now, based on these concerns, and as a regulator, we will now step in to ensure that we scrutinize all the investment going forward so we don't get back to that space again? Okay,
so there are two faults. One is the legacy ones, okay, prior to say 2010, the ones that they've done, and these are properties that are landed properties and all that, and perhaps the time they did them, they were so wonderful in the country, and for now they need to do one or two to make sure they are still economically viable, and among others. That is that bit. Moving forward, what are some of the measures that we have to all take with them and the management and the trust, the board, to ensure that they actually are careful as to the selection of the investment products and all. Those are the things we are talking about. So yes, we need to still look at the ones, anything in their books, we have to look at that, look at how best they can improve on the state of that, and then also look at the ones moving forward. How do we go about it? How do we have a relationship to ensure that, at least if not necessarily approval, no objection, we are aware about the kind of, especially given the quantums that are involved in some of the projects or the investment that they will have to make. So that is what the board is seeking to do, to ensure that there is a collaboration, a strong one, and to be very honest with you, they've been very supportive in this directive.
Are you satisfied with their plan to restructure some of their investments? And from the board perspective as a regulator, I mean, I remember that I had an interview with the Director General, this was about 10 years ago, and he mentioned the plan about how they want to restructure their holdings in the hospitality space, and that has been a long strategy. What is the board doing also to ensure that for the review in their investment into certain space as well, we want to know about it and how it's being done?
Okay, so first and foremost, what they have done, they have given this country, I mean, best of services when it comes to the hospitality industry and others, as you've seen. But as business, there will be challenges, in my view, some of the projects and how they are faring. And so there's a need for us to respond in that direction. That, yes, where there are challenges, let's fix them. And if you look at the number of investment in this sector, there is a need for a holistic view. They have attempted in the past to do certain things, I mean, trying to reorganize so that these investments will actually be viable, very viable, as expected. And I think you're aware what's in the news and all. But these are all efforts that you want to see. I mean, you look at investment in the potential of the investment and how the state of it and how perhaps you can turn things around. So we all have to engage. I mean, it's our scheme. You're a member of that scheme. Yeah. I'm also a member of that scheme, and everybody. So our hope is that we are able to reorganize. And I mentioned earlier, not only in that sector, there are other sectors as well, or other asset classes that there's a need for us to have a critical look at them. And they are doing their thing, their best, and we are also supporting in that. We are also giving some inputs, directions, and all that. we all have to collaborate together then. And for me, we can only be hopeful that where we think there's something wrong, we have to fix it. That is how we look at it.
You mentioned about being in the news, and has the authority also approved their decision to kind of disinvest in the hospitality space as well, and clearly has to do with the hotels as well. And I bring back this point that I heard about this in about 10 to 15 years ago. So has the authority given their blessings that go ahead and disinvest this interest in these hotels that some are said to be doing well, or what is the authority or the board's position in terms of reviewing their investment, especially when it comes to some of these hotels?
Okay, so the review of investments, as I mentioned earlier about the policy of all the asset classes, they have a series of them, and how they have to look at each class and how they're performing and what should be done and all that. That is being done. And and I'm talking about what I call legacy. Prior to 2010 and even quite recently, how we have been engaging to now drill down and know for each of them what is happening and what they have been doing. Some of the things perhaps they do it, we get to know by our inspection and our contact and all, and then we are able to help them to also make inputs, so to speak. And so it is something that, George, we've got to get this done. SNIT, I'm not there yet to be 60, but I need to draw my money from that.
It means that you are very cautious or careful about what is done to ensure that the right thing is done. And
yes,
for
of
you,
course.
Do you think that from the board and I see the authority perspective, do you think that they are getting value for money in terms of their plans to get out of some of these hotels? Okay,
so we need further assessment. That is one.
That's what you're doing right now?
No, or you? Yes. So what I'm saying,
somebody thought that they had briefed the authority already on this.
Oh, they have certain processes that they undertake, and we don't micromanage it.
No.
We make sure that within the framework, we give policy. As I mentioned, the caliber of people and the governance are quite strong. But the reality is that certain things they have to report to us, and then we also, appraise it. We still have engagement with them on even the ongoing issues, and we have not been final with our decision yet. They get to a point, they inform you, and you need to take a decision based on certain other information. So we are engaging on that. We have not actually come to a conclusion on whatever, but we think that many of the assets in their books, we'll have to relook at them for the interest of the Ghanaian worker.
Where we look will be what, to be disposing them or realigning the investments and all the rest and all those things.
Yeah, there's a need for us to, the investment is, these are investments and they are in our names, and we must make sure that the scheme gets the benefit of those investments. And so, but of course there should be some much transparency, professional touch, and good judgment. And these are the things we are looking at. So yes, whatever they do at their end through their management and the board, the trust board, there's something that we should also know, of course, with the Minister of Pensions and all stakeholders, so that we do what is in the interest of the workers or the contributors or members of the scheme. So that is, an engagement is ongoing, I have to tell you. And what we have not been conclusive yet on what we are telling them. But we are picking data right from center.
But I get from you that whatever from the authorities' perspective, there will be value for money. Because I remember that just yesterday or 2 days ago, I asked the governor of the Bank of Ghana about the decision of the SG to review their business that could lead to the sale of some shares. And the governor's response was that they've not been officially communicated, but they would demand even interested parties that would apply to take the shares. If I bring it back to NPRA and SNIT and trying to disinvest their interest in these hotels, are you going to assure us that there will be value for money in whatever decision that they take going forward in the hospitality space and the hotels as well?
I can give you that 100% assurance that, look, it's your money, my money. That's one. Two, we want to ensure that there's value for money, there's transparency, okay? And there's good judgment in all this. So basically, these are the key, points on which we actually evaluate this whatever is ongoing there. So we are going to ensure that I mean, all actors in that, we have to review, we have to know where we stand in that, and then the assessments, the processes as well, and then value for money. And I keep saying that it's your money, my money, and that is what we can do for our country and our people. So we can assure you that, yes, serious engagement will continue on this, and we'll come up with something that will kneel to the Ghanaian worker. And our country. So that is what it is.
Yesterday we spoke to the organized labor on radio as well, and they talked about some meetings that will take place today and all the rest. I mean, how are these engagements going to ensure that all these parties, because organized labor, for instance, are saying that we don't want SNIT to go out to disinvest their interest. But again, from the regulator's perspective, you also want to ensure that, listen, what can be done to sustain the scheme as well?
Okay, so yes, I'm part of that meeting, and in due course, I'll have to join. We are all part, working in a collaborative manner for the good of the scheme. We have one cardinal thing to make SNIT financially sustainable. The SNIT scheme, the Basic National Social Security Scheme, that's the name of the scheme. The trustee, the trust company is the SNIT. All we seek to do is to ensure that as regulators, the ministry, the regulator, and then also all actors, we play our roles in a manner that we lend support, in a manner that would make sure that the scheme itself is financially sustainable. And that is what we are doing. It doesn't matter the stage of it, the engagement continues. And then I hope, the kind of people who are engaged, in this behind the scenes and even fronting in certain areas, we are going to have a decision that will inure to the benefit of the Ghanaians.
You talked about expenditure as well. I mean, why expenditure? I mean, after all, they have to spend to make the scheme sustainable. You talked about in the area of expenditure as well. Why is your eagle eye going into that area from the perspective of the authority? Okay,
so George, you get good salary from Joy. I know you are paid well, and
it's not for discussion.
you get such a good money from Joy, and whatever you get at the end of the month, yes, if you don't control it, what happens? So we are thinking about the investment asset classes, government actually paying their contributions on time, and you can have all these things done properly. But if you don't also check how you spend, apart from the benefit payment, even there you have to make sure that there are no ghost names and all that. And expenditure, I mean the cost of admin expenses, how to run the scheme, because don't forget that's a DB scheme. So they are the same people. I mean, there's no, we don't have the kind of a tripod as we have in the private sector. Private pension schemes, they have the trustees and whatever they get, they have to make sure that they're operationally viable in the places that they must be, having all the branches and all that, and then run the scheme to pay benefits at the end of people's retirement. And so what you are looking at is that that money, elsewhere, you talk about percentages, and if you are in this situation where you think that you are likely to even increase maybe some retirement age, or say increase contribution rate, or reduce benefit payment and all that, looking at how much comes in to pay benefits as the pension bill goes up, and then the inflows are just almost neck and neck. What returns are going to come in to support you? You also have to look at your expenditure, your operations, how much it costs you to run the scheme, and it's not out of place to look at it, and then to also sound some caution here and there. Now, let us actually also streamline that side, because then you can have so much coming, but if you don't actually have a structured way of administering the scheme in terms of expenditure, then you end up actually spending so much on expenditure, and that will also defeat the financial sustainability cause.
This is PM Express Business Edition as we look at pension contributions in Ghana today. What is the National Pensions Regulatory Authority doing to ensure that the right things are done by all the players in the industry? We'll be right back after this break. Welcome back to PM Express Business Edition as we look at pensions contributions, protecting them. Is the regulator ensuring that that is done in Ghana today? Mr. Mbro is the Chief Executive of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. Let's come to the ILO report, and it sends shivers to the spine a lot of people out there. For you as a regulator, worried by that? About the SNIT scheme,
2 ways.
the sustainability, and going forward?
Okay, 2 ways.
Okay.
One is that, yes, the report is a forward-looking report.
Okay.
And if you check SNIT, reports from the ILO, they've always projected on all those lines that if you don't do A, B, C, D, you're having to do, you go this way or that way. And so it is the features of the report of, from the ILO by the actuaries, external actuaries. And what it means is that we need to keep improving. For example, as I mentioned, it's all about the financial sustainability of the scheme over a long period. And if you don't do certain things, then you are likely to actually
what are you going to, because it wasn't just a warning, but for some people it sends shivers down your spines.
Okay.
If we don't act now, the sustainability of the scheme going forward.
Yes, I say they shouldn't, because over the period, as I mentioned earlier, every time they give you a period ahead, that by this period, if you don't do this and you go at this rate, not rate in terms of contribution rate, but at this pace, without doing certain things, then by this time there will not be anything in the fund. But we've had this 2017 report and all that. We do things to make sure that the scheme is financially sustainable. That's what I'm saying.
And as you speak right now, what is the authority doing? What has the authority done to ensure that the scheme going forward is sustainable?
So I mentioned 2 things earlier: the investment policy that helps them to have a guideline about how they invest and review the existing investment asset classes to make sure they are economically viable, to unleash some kind of life into the scheme. That is very important. The next thing has to do with how they look at the admin expenses, among others. I know they've done a whole lot of expenditure rationalization there. Trust me, they've done that. And in addition to also, stepping up their enforcement actions to make sure that, they rake in quite a lot of contributions and all. Also, the government, as in this case, the biggest employer in their space, or of course in the pension space as well, to also pay as and when they need to pay. So I hope you're aware, recently there was about 2.6 billion that has been injected in addition to the private sector enforcement that is going. So as for the sustainability, I would say we are home and dry.
So there's no cause for alarm for the warning that the 10 years will drop. That is your word, and that's the assurance coming from you.
Of course, yes.
That we can go to sleep about the SNIT scheme, the sustainability going forward.
Yes,
that
of course.
Everything is
Yes. We are well aware about the issues we are having to deal with, and it is a work in progress. And we'll continue to do that to make sure that the scheme is sustainable. We are never going to let the Ghanaian people.
What about those who have argued that?
Let them down.
And I've had this interaction with SNIT a number of times, and their director generals have pushed the argument about taking a second look at the contributions, the rate, the investment, people's contributions as well. The authority, what's your take on that one? Do you think that the way to go is increasing the contributions, or let's deal with the internal challenges? If we deal with them, there might not be the need to increase it.
Yeah, so, they've raised issues. The actuaries raised issues, and they've always done that. That, yes, there will be a situation, if you're not careful, we're going to actually increase the contribution rate to make it, a bit better, unleash some kind of funds into the system. Then also, they also look at...
Do you support that?
We are not there yet. We are not there yet. We need to do a lot of study.
But that's what SNIT is saying. SNIT is a big player. They're saying that increase the contributions so that we can help with the sustainability of the scheme going forward.
Okay, so you know that there was a report that indicated that there could be a situation where we increase the contribution rate, or increase the retirement age, or reduce benefit payment to make sure the scheme is financially sustainable. What we are tackling now are from two prone. The issue about investment itself, what they have, the legacy investments, and the ones that they are going to do. Let's make sure that there's sanity in there, that we are able to actually calibrate things, and then to make it more viable moving forward, to actually unleash life into the financial health of the scheme. Then again, look at the expenditure lines, okay? Also ensure that we streamline that bit as well. And together, if you're able to do that, yes, we'll be able to, we might maybe consider these things in future, but perhaps not in the in the interim. So yes, there are proposals. I mean,
so
theoretically,
it still sits at the proposal level. It's not something the authority would give its blessings to an increase in contributions.
Oh,
to the
not
scheme.
yet, not yet.
What
not
about
yet.
what about the retirement ages? Well, there been proposals that can we look at a situation where 2 years extra as well that can help bring in more.
Okay, so the SNIS scheme now, based on contributions and the payout, if we should look at the internal things that we discussed, those issues, Ghanaian people have to come together. I mean, the stakeholders will have to come together and make a decision.
The regulator will have to take a lead.
Yeah, of course.
So what is the lead when it comes to the bit about the retirement age?
Oh, well, we need to do a lot of studies.
2 years or something?
We cannot say 2 years. What we can
3 years or 5 years?
we cannot commit to that for now.
But you would take the lead to Parliament. You would take the lead to your minister, pensions minister and all the rest. That this is what I think that we should go. Then the industry stakeholder engagement starts.
Yes.
So would you give your blessings to at the authority level?
Okay, so George, what I'll tell you is that our core mandate now is to look at the scheme as it is, the state of it, how to reorganize it. Beyond that, if we still see that there are certain areas that we need to, I mean, certain considerations in terms of retirement age, you know, reducing benefits and increasing contribution rate and all that, we'll come to that. But for now, our major task is to make sure that we look at what comes in and what goes out, and whatever is used in terms of investments and all. These are very responsive to the situation SNET is in now. That yes, quite a mature scheme, but if we are able to get the investments reorganized, okay, and then do things moving forward in a manner that will target very, let me say, some other investment that will unleash life, financial life into the scheme, then we might actually not be just thinking about increasing contribution rate and then retirement age and then also maybe perhaps reducing benefit in the interim.
As you try and wrap up on this engagement as well, the informal sector again, what is the plan going forward? Because the argument is that it is good to try and bring in all these persons that are outside there. That could also lead to growing various schemes and ensuring that the future of these persons are safe.
Okay. The informal sector, as I mentioned earlier, worries all of us. I mean, if you look at the country where we are told about 85% of our working populace is in that sector, and if majority of them are not having retirement, you know, income in terms of a planned one like pensions, then, well, I mean, it will affect all of us because we all have people within our families and communities who are in that sector, and you are basically a private person in public position, and very soon perhaps you'll be a private person as well, perhaps an individual or a self-employed, and there's a need for us to maybe look at it holistically. What we are trying to do is to engage, you know, unions and TUC and all that, and the unions and the TUC, those that are not under that. We've done sensitization with the pension companies that are offering these products in several regions. Our hope is that there should be that awareness that look, there's a law, there's a new system that you can actually do something. Put your destiny in your own hands by doing some small contribution or little contributions to a particular period when you retire and you have something reasonably to take home, or to also then at that vulnerable age, you are able to do something with it. It is about education, and I'm calling on churches and all of us. We have groups, you know, associations and unions and friends. We have certain friends or several friends in that sector. Let us always talk about pensions. And let's tell them, not only those like you in this, your wonderful sector, but those who are also doing their, you know, self-employed jobs or doing their own jobs, and those who are also in certain groups like those roasting plantain, those selling onions and others in the market and all that. Let's let them know that yes, in addition to whatever they are doing, this opportunity is there for them to be part. We are partnering with other development partners and then our industry players to always create the opportunity. But you know, it's voluntary, and of course people will look at their income levels and how the frequency of incomes and all that to make a decision. There's an opportunity also there that regardless of how frequent you make the contributions, yes, there's a system to accommodate it. Perhaps they don't know, and we'll keep sensitizing. That is a voluntary decision they have to make. But it is in their good interest that they do that. And so you help us. I mean, we need the media to also help us. Talk to anybody you meet. That please, do you do pensions? There's a space for you. You can do, personal pension or group personal pension, and then in future. And you see, the beautiful thing, George, with that is that it gives you a savings portion and pensions portion. Yeah. So if at a point in time you are in your own private business and you want to actually draw down to support your business, you are there. You are able to get something. The next thing is that if you retire also, you are not looking at people who are actually in the formal sector to be drawing pensions or getting some kind of lump sum. You will also be able to, you would have planned something. And they're saying that if you plan to fail, if you fail to plan, you plan to fail. Yeah. That is the equation here. Yeah. So there's a need for us to all encourage people. And please, when you go to any other place outside here, please ask them that, do you do pensions? There's a space for you.
Yeah, yeah. But I thought that was my very last question as well. The assurance to organized labor out there and the workers out there who are worried about all these ILO reports and you going into even this NEET engagement as well. What is your final word to organized labor out there? Your final word to contributors who are still worried, get into this meeting and showing that there's value for money and all the rest. What word do you have for organized labor? What do you have for contributors out there?
Okay, so what I would say is that let us work together. For us as the pension regulator, the MPRA, and all the stakeholders, SNIT will never go down. I mean, there's no question about that. There's systems in place.
As long as you're here.
Yes, of course. The systems in place and all that we are doing, there's no cause for alarm. In fact, we need to be encouraged. And we need to, yes, it's good for these things to come up, but reality is that we need to encourage, to be able to encourage ourselves and the parties to be able to really work on a scheme that offers retirement income, monthly retirement income, so to speak, for a vast majority of our people. And don't forget, recently, SNIT has even done the seed for the informal sector as well. That even within the informal sector, apart from the lump sum that you get under the tier 3, you can actually also do tier 1. You can contribute, for a period, and then you get a benefit of tier 1 as well. So that they are also targeting those in the informal sector or self-employed persons who would also do some pension contributions. And then at the end of their working lives, they'll be able to get some monthly pension in addition to the tier 3, which gives them a lump sum. Okay, so we will tell, organized labor, we will assure them that we are working together. I mean, many of them and their reps are in the various schemes. Some of them are even, on the SNIT board and all that. We are working together to ensure that SNIT does not have any hitch. Yes, there'll be challenges, but those challenges are known, and we have always worked on that. And we're going to do the same thing. It's not our time that we are going to cause SNIT to actually, go down.
And that's a promise. That. And that's
look at our ages. Then what do we have?
That's a promise.
It's a promise that will not happen.
And that's an assurance.
It's an assurance. There's nothing. I mean, that's going to happen to SNIT within the time frame. You see, these reports are for the future, and they give you indicators that if A, B, C, D are not done by this time, this happens. And it's not the first time this report has come. If you check, this is 2021. 2017 came, 2014 and all that. They are enjoying to issue the report, every 3 years. And you can go back and see the kind of projections that they've made and all that within timelines. We are well aware, and we'll continue to work to ensure that the SNIT scheme is financially sustainable. I think I've mentioned some of the things to you.
We will take you by your word. We'll take you by your word and come back to you when there are problems. Mr. John Kenin Amro is the Chief Executive of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. I know the debate will still go on in your homes and your offices about what can be... What is it about? Is it still about the informal sector or trying to bring those people in that space?
Yes, the informal sector. Thank you very much. The informal sector, we are working, several. We are using several angles to do that. We are using market women, also certain groups, certain unions within the sector, self-employed groups that we can identify. And very soon we are hitting the streets of Agbogbloshie.
That is still in the informal space
informal
as well.
Sector, yes, informal sector.
I mean, from the numbers that you have so far, are they looking promising in terms of what you're doing so far to bring in those in that space in the informal sector?
Very, 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 very much so. They are really, they are promising. They are promising. We have, for tier 3 alone, almost 600,000, almost. And then tier 1, recently as they started, the SNIT scheme started the seed. They are hitting, they are over 80-something thousand now. Individual contributors who are doing the SNIT scheme. And they keep going. You know, the strategy is that they need to move and get people well educated, informed, and they are joining. So we need to do more. The only challenge here is the income levels, and then also the decision of the individual to have the understanding and then actually do it. That is where it is. But we'll keep nudging them. It's quite a lot of cost to the pension companies, especially the tier 3 ones. No, these are private companies, and if the problem here is that they spend so much money to get one contributor. And then when a contributor comes in also, there is a flexible way where, I mean, the person can draw down. So sometimes it's not profitable to the companies who are actually supposedly taking loans to do business, to look at their profit margins and others, and then to be spending so much to attract somebody to come on the scheme. But broadly, they have also embraced this very move, and we are carrying them along as a service to the country and our people. So it is catching up so well. We are going to Abosokan, Abugloshi, okay, Abosokan Enclave and all the our brothers and sisters there in due course. I think it's next week. We are going, and we want you to come along. Because when they see George, I think many of them will do it for us.
We'll talk about that. This has been a PM Express Business Edition, looking at the pension contribution, protecting them, and what is the National Pensions Regulatory Authority doing to ensure that your investment are safe, and when you're due for retirement, you get what you're due. Mr. John Kweni Imbro is the Chief Executive of the National Pensions Regulatory Authority. The debate, I know, will definitely go on in your homes and your offices on whether the right things are being done and ensure that you can sleep safe and sound, and when the time is due, you will get what you're due. My name is George Wiafe. Have a great day.